Dear listeners and friends, hello and welcome to CUP Podcast, episode 111. My name is Birgit and my guest today is Yasmine Mahmoudieh, a London-based architect and designer, art historian, an entrepreneur, lecturer, speaker, podcaster and more, internationally recognized for groundbreaking designs and a strong commitment to sustainability. She is on a mission to shift the way the building industry uses materials. Hello and welcome, Yasmine.
Hello, Birgit. It's very nice to meet you. Very pleased to be here.
You lived and worked so many places. You founded your own architecture firm very early in your career. I'm so curious, tell us a bit more about your journey, where and how it actually all began.
Well, I developed a very early age kind of a passion for design and architecture. And I was, as a child already, I was constantly changing the house of my parents and the arrangement when they were on vacation or something. And when we were going to friends' houses, I was constantly in my head thinking, oh my God, this looks horrible. This should be like this and that. And I remember my mother would kind of stop me and say, listen, we are just here as guests. You should keep quiet. And so I had the visual world was always very important to me. So this is where at a very early age I saw that it's my career. And I was on the journey to see what do I like more. Is it more in design or architecture? So I started to study in different places, going from art history in Florence to architecture in Geneva to design in San Francisco. And then I ended up in Los Angeles and graduated from UCLA and was, studying architecture and design. And then, a year later, started my own company.
And this was in LA?
This was in LA, exactly, yes. I lived there for 10 years, so it's kind of where I started my journey. And, America is still a very important place for my thinking because there's a big difference to think the American way and the European way. But I have to also emphasize America was very, very different when I studied there.
When was that? When did you graduate?
It was in the 80s, and it was a very different world than today.
Yes.
There is no limit to possibilities. I felt as a woman, I was respected, and it was a very pragmatic place. But even I had a good degree from a good university. It really mattered what I'm able to do. It didn't matter, my degree didn't matter so much in my work. It just mattered what are you. What is it that you can do? And I always had internships during my studies, so I was quite advanced in practical knowledge next to the academic career.
Yeah, this was quite exciting period of California life, I think, the 80s.
It was fantastic. It was the fusion between the California cuisine started, which was between Asian and European food, and the amazing restaurants. And it was just a very vibrant society and very uplifting.
Mm-hmm. I was there as a high school student in late 70s. I was visiting a family of my parents there. I spent 6 weeks in California, went from south to north. The most amazing experience I had, the family just built a house, timber construction. And I asked them, when did you start? And they said, 3 months ago. And the building was ready, was finished, everything okay, in the middle of the woods, very nice, perfect. So I said to myself, okay, it can be quicker than all the Europeans do these construction and building and so on and so forth. I think this was my first flash, okay, there's something happening. It's very fresh, it's very new and very inspiring. I was 17 at the time.
Yes, absolutely. It is. It was a very inspiring place, and I truly enjoyed, having started my company and my career over there than anywhere else.
How come then you crossed the ocean?
Well, after 10 years, I was always very close to my parents who lived in Hamburg in Germany. And I felt also that it was so far away from Europe. I would go once or twice a year. But I felt that it was a very transient city because people would come and go after a few years. And I had a very big, international community of friends. And so I was quite long there compared to many other who would come and study and go back. And I was really missing Europe and the idea that you have all these vicinity of countries. You go in 1-2 hours, you're in a different culture. You were between Greece, Spain, Portugal, Scandinavia. This is something that I really miss. And also, like I said, I was close to my parents, and I felt I don't see also my old friends enough. And I felt that Europe is still, in terms of quality of life, more the place I wanted to be.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Talking about home, living in so many places that you did, what does feeling home mean, and where is it?
Well, first in terms for myself, I don't have a desire, or I don't have this need that I have to have a home, because I find it's kind of pure coincidence where you're born. In which environment you grow up, and I always like the idea to have the choice to say, do I really like to live in this place, or is there somebody? The world is so big. I'm a huge traveler, and I had the opportunity to travel a lot with my parents, which I was very privileged to do this. Every vacation we would be somewhere else, and I see the world more like a playground. I think there's so many places, and part of my work also as an architect designer excited me to combine my love for traveling, because going to different countries, I worked in Russia, I worked in East Europe, in Southern Europe, many places, America, Asia. It would give you the opportunity to really learn about the culture and learn it in a different way than being just a tourist. And if you ask me today, I lived 16 years in London, where my kids grew up. And if I would have one place that I would call home, it would probably be London, because it's still very, it's all the things from the schooling and the friends of the schools, and where I feel also it's an incredible city that, with all the problems it does have, especially today, it's still a place where I would say this is my home, if there's a home. But I don't have, like I said, the need. I always felt extremely well where I was living at the time of my life. I always enjoyed it. I was integrated. I always learned a lot, about the countries. And I find the world to be too exciting to have a choice. And I don't need this belonging to something where I would say, just this is my, absolute home.
Mm-hmm. That sounds very easy, You say, okay, I worked here and there, Asia, and so many places. We are talking about the time before digital times, right?
Yes, exactly.
So easy it was not, I can imagine.
I know, but I think I was wired through the American mind that there is really, everything is possible, when you believe in it. And I never saw any, obstacles were always on the way in life. It's normal in your, I think it's part of life. Otherwise life would be very boring, including the really tough obstacle that, everybody probably passes through. But I think that because I also very early liked really to work in hospitality, and obviously hospitality is a field that is global, and so that is another way. That's another reason it attracted me a lot to say, if I work in hospitality, if I work for a brand, I can work in different countries, and I speak also several languages, which made it easier to work in countries than just knowing one or two languages. So combining that together and the curiosity. And especially to hospitality, I have to say, it opened the way to many different countries.
So traveling was leading you to hospitality, to luxury hospitality, and to develop all these concepts. And
yes, but also another reason. When I was, when I started my company, I was first working in LA on one of my first clients for the big Japanese construction company called Aoki. That still exists today. And I was working for them on luxury.
You also speak Japanese?
No, I don't speak Japanese. No. I speak a few languages, but not Japanese. But anyway, I met her in LA, and I was doing luxury condominiums for them on Wilshire Boulevard in LA, and it was one of my first clients. And then I also was working on private residences for the head of the neurosurgeon department of UCLA. And in my short career, when I was working for someone else, I was working on a house in Malibu, which was also a very exciting project, also a very stressful project. And it was for one of the bunnies of Hugh Hefner, who was the main bunny, and she was married to a movie producer, and they were like cat and and dog, and it was quite crazy. And then in my own career, when I started my company, I decided I not so much concentrate really on private homes. I don't go there. I can't enjoy it. And also there's too much psychology involved. And there's it's less professional, and it's also time-wise. People have all the time in the world, and if you do more commercial projects, it's more exciting. And then I first had my first years was I had a partner, a Dutch partner, when I started my company. We were 50-50 partners, and we had some very spectacular projects. We designed a restaurant for Sylvester Stallone in Los Angeles, and called Manhattan West, and we won a competition on the East Coast to work on MassMoCA, which is still existing today, Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art. And it was an abandoned mill, which was an abandoned factory for electrical parts. And it was the idea to turn it into the biggest museum for contemporary art. And we were commissioned to do the fundraising event to turn this factory into a fundraising event. And we spent time there in North Adams, which is close to Williamstown, which is a very posh city where Williams College is. And actually the head of the project was Thomas Krantz, who used to be the head of the Guggenheim. And it was a very exciting project because we just had to turn this into this fundraising event. And we took out all old doors that had an incredible patina, and we tilted them like taking off, like a fighter taking off, and we plastered all the dishes on top of the doors, which were like the dining buffet tables, and then we did like fighter jets with wire mesh, and we did the whole place it was a very unique design, and the whole project was exciting because the exhibition was about the wild Berlin artist who had an exhibition at the Guggenheim in New York. And
who was it?
It's called Die Wilden. Die Wilden.
Die Wilden, okay, the whole group. Yeah, right.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And it was all supported by Sonnabend Gallery, Saatchi & Saatchi, Rothschild Foundation. So it was a very, incredible project, and we were on TV and radio and raising funding, and it was very, very exciting. So then this already started to be, museum art was always something I really liked. And then I had the opportunity also before that 1 year where I told you where I worked for someone else. I worked for the biggest company in America called HNTB, Howard Needles, Taman and Bergendorf, who had 40 offices, only design hotels around America. And I worked on major hotels in Disneyland, in Palm Beach, in Dana Point. So I got already that because this company was only about. But then I quit after I felt I learned enough, and then I met my then Dutch partner, where we had for 2 years this company together, which was called ADG, Architectural Design Group. But then after 2 years, I split, and I felt that we have different ideas, but in a good way we split up. And then I continued my own career, and one of my first projects was also to redesign the House of the Beatles, which was bought by...
Where was that?
It was bought by a French-Canadian family, and I don't even remember, but I had interesting contacts from the project that I was working for the producer, and I was doing also some work for Lucas Production for the actors, when they have to get... They're prepared to perform. They have all these makeup rooms, and this was a really interesting study about lighting. So I think I became very expert on lighting very early in my career, because if you are going on stage and you don't look incredibly good, they just go crazy, and you have to have the best lighting, for them to look at. And so it was it was very exciting, and I had some very exciting projects.
You are talking about these first projects so emotionally, as if it was yesterday.
Yeah, you made them come back because it's, I feel like I have several lives, it's such a long time ago, but it's...
How did you get in touch with all these very interesting clients?
Well, whatever we did, it got published, and we did always something out of the box, I never wanted to be just like everybody else, so... I already had always looking at unusual materials at the time, which came into my passion today of sustainability, which started very, very early in my career where nobody really cared about it. I was saying I'm living in LA in Hollywood. I also did acting classes on the side next to my studies at UCLA, and that was also the amazing thing about UCLA, that you have an extension curriculum. And I thought, I'm living here in the city of, of Hollywood and all the actors in the world. I have to experience how this is. So I did take classes in extension, and then my professor, he had a few theaters in Hollywood, so it was more theater acting, and he promoted me. He thought I was talented, and there was a time that I could have switched to acting, but then I had also through accident, some amazing friends who were from from that field, especially a lady who was like almost the age of my mother at the time. She was the widow of Alan Lerner, who wrote My Fair Lady, Gigi and Chameleon. And we became like very good friends. We met at an opening of a Mexican sculptor in LA. And we became really like extreme good friends. She was a very unusual, interesting woman. And she also told me that, her husband, Alan Lerner, I mean, he got Liz Taylor and Richard Burton together in Capri, and it was always all very amazing. But she said it's a very tough business, and you're very, as a woman, you are very much under, the control of the producers, and it's quite terrible. It's, the whole Me Too movement is something that I could already see at the time that's how it works in Hollywood. And I also really liked my field so much that I didn't do the switch, but I also think it did help me in public speaking. So it has it has a lot of different advantages to have gone through that study by myself, just out of curiosity.
Yeah. Curiosity is a big theme. Also materials. You just mentioned very early in your career, in professional career, it came into your mind, okay, we have to think about in future to develop materials for sustainability, building and architecture. What was your first moment when you were thinking about, okay, I have to shift these?
Well, I was always a bit suspicious about how pollution is handled and how much pollution the construction industry is producing. So I was always like, also then when I had my company with my team, seeing what are better ways to build. Now in California, because of the earthquake, you build, that's why you talk about the wood construction, you do mainly a lot of wood construction, and then you have steel construction, in high rise, but in other houses, many wood construction, because it's the safest if you have earthquakes. So there wasn't like in Switzerland, all the concrete buildings, that you have in Switzerland or in Germany built. And I discovered more and more that concrete is really absolutely evil for the world. And it's, it was very cool for all the architects. They loved concrete. It was like, Verbier was the representative of concrete. And the more and more I studied, the more and more I was also always worried about what is happening with the world and in that we built. And I remember that actually in Germany, when I had my geography classes, our professor said when we were like really little kids, in 50 years the world can be totally threatened by pollution and it will be terrible, the climate. And this was so incredible. Like he told us really when we were in 7th, 8th grade, and it somehow stuck with me. The thing that, when everything is through mass tourism also overpolluted. Like I also had some subjects for my degree where, my high school diploma, where I had to study Spain and all the destruction of the environment done by the coast, the Costa Brava and Costa del Sol, and how it had, actually terrible, effect on the environment. So I always, first of all, loved materials and lighting, because I thought these are the two things, specifically in interior architecture, which make a space alive. And so I was always interested to see who invents some new material that are natural, organic. And so it started quite early, I have to say. But like I said before, nobody really cared about it. It was just about aesthetics and cost and price and these kind of things, but nothing beyond that.
The concrete lobby was huge.
Well, it's sadly it's still the most used material in the world in construction today, which is a big problem, and which is now through my talks around the globe I'm trying to shift and change, and trying to show that we have so many alternatives we can use.
Talking about alternatives, how do you get in touch with all these researchers who are developing all these new ideas and materials?
When I had my own company, I had really literally for 2 years, I hired somebody who did nothing else than research alternative materials around the world. So it was my own investment into researching, and not only in vicinity where I was living, but around the world. So
investment means
this person that I paid for 2 years didn't have any return of investment directly, because she was doing nothing else than looking for materials that are from nature, organic or recycled. Or so I started to create this library, which I have today, where we have over 400 sustainable materials.
we have to talk about this library later. Okay, but go on.
So, but it started really by first doing the research, because it wasn't evident, and like you said, the world wasn't like as digital as today, and it was like finding out, or whenever I saw something through my travels and I recognized something, I would research it and I find out who produces it, or who's behind it, and then after I became quite known for that. Fortunately, even today, some companies contact me and tell me, oh, we have this material, either on LinkedIn or on social media, to let me know if I would be interested in it.
So you really need venture capital or private equity or something like that, to push it a bit.
Yes, I mean, I'm in this is the year 26 where I really want to launch it. So I'm putting a team together. At the moment, I'm more looking at having the right people in my team, because I did have a startup in 2013 in London, which was very different, which was an educational marketplace for children's education. And but I was one of the first startups in Google Campus. And when you've
sorry, was it a school or what?
No, it was called My Kidsy, and it was the first global marketplace to book activities after school for children. So we started in 2013. I moved in 2009 to London with my children when they were very little. And I always wanted to, my daughter wanted a yoga class, my son wanted some science class, and I said, it's crazy that in 2013 it was really like the beginning of the tech revolution, if you want. And I thought, it's crazy, there must be some site where I find all, as a working mother, where do I find all these activities instead of my children hanging out in front of a TV or computer? So I did some research, and then some of the parents of the school in London of my children, they were so excited, they wanted to leave their job as lawyers and everything. That scared me a bit. And I was always a true entrepreneur, taking always risk all my life. And I said, well, they have a very secure job. I don't know where this journey is going to go to. And I still had my design company. I was building it on the side. And so I didn't want to have anybody to leave their jobs. But we were the first in London to offer coding classes for children from 5 years onwards. I mean, it didn't exist in all of the UK. And I worked with somebody that's just started doing it called Coder Dojo. Then we started our own My Kidsy classes. And I would go to the universities in London, the best ones like Imperial College and all these fantastic universities, and hire the students, because I said it's fun if it's the next generation teaching children. But it was started with coding, and then it was entrepreneurship, financial literacy, mindfulness, sustainability. I call it life skills that schools still today don't teach. You don't also really learn it in university. So I thought that this is going to change the world for humanity. I mean, this was a very, very big mission, and I was totally passionate, and also being in Google Campus at that time was very exciting. And we won awards, but I had some advisors who were putting me in front of VCs that were investing 50 million, where we only needed a few million. So we didn't have the right access. And then I did get funding, but I remember this is also why I have been, a bit changing my locations after we got funding. We were signing a letter of intent from an investor from Tel Aviv, who was living in London, and he had a lot of investments in the educational space. And we were kind of signing the agreement, and this was before Brexit. And he was saying to me, but Yasmine, if Brexit happens, I might have to pull out of the UK. And we were all laughing, like, oh, never ever going to happen. And so when this happened, and then Brexit did happen, as you know, and he did pull out. And then I had another fund, European fund, but they wanted me to come to Paris. And I said, my kids are in school in London, I can't just move to Paris. So, and at the end of it, it took me a very long time until 2019 to really scale it and do it, but I invested also my own money, which wasn't a good idea. I sold the property and invested my own money instead of getting smart money. You know, you learn from your mistakes, but I'm just giving this as an example. Now doing another startup in sustainability, which is now what, you know, I'm back into my design world since a very long time. Gives me still a lot of headspace, I think, and that I know how to do it, how to, you know, find the right people, the team members and co-founders, and in order to scale this. And then I'm pretty confident that investment and finding, you know, venture capital will not be that difficult, because everybody understands it's a unique opportunity to have a global marketplace for sustainable materials that would enable all over the world to, you know, make better choices, which are cost efficient, which are time efficient, and give access to all these great companies who are really dedicating their life to create these products.
Yeah. But it's strange, you know, if you mention sustainability, VCs are ready to invest, you know, if it's global. And education, it's always a bit different and difficult to get the funding. So everybody say, yeah, great idea, wow.
I have many friends who know about my Kitsy, and they're still saying, oh my God, you were so early. And when then the pandemic came, imagine this would have been already live, because the concept was also that you would have also online classes if you couldn't come to the course. So it was a very thought out concept and very easy. And I had like an incredible team of people from, you know, one of my advisors was the head of marketing from Airbnb, because after America, the first place they came to was London. And then I had from Google, the CMO, the chief marketing officer, could have been the head of Google AdWords for Europe, Middle East, Africa. So I had like an A-class team. But I have to say that, I don't know if you know it, but in technology startups, women have got never more than 1.8% of funding, which is quite scandalous. And I realized, you know, I was going to some VCs, and I was there with some other people who raised a lot of funding, where I saw this company is going to go down. It went, which did, you know, some startups at the same time in 2013, like one of them was YPlan, which was the outgoing app where to go, you know, to see some gigs. And I said, this is never going to work, because you have already master, you know, you have all these Encore and all these organizations for concerts. You can't scale it. But, you know, they raised 38 million, and then they went bankrupt after I don't know how many years. And famous people were investors like Pharrell Williams, Ashton Kutcher. And I realized that when I went to the VCs, somebody told me later, they were thinking, oh, she was a famous architect and designer. No, she's a mom, and she's doing this on the side. And I can never, ever scale my design company, as my Kitsy could have been a unicorn. You know, it definitely could have been, because if you think about the two most biggest expenses of any family is the house and the children, probably the children more than the house, the education. So it was also to think that, you know, everything that's happening in the world today could have been changed, in the sense that if you make children powerful, no matter where they come from, you know, what background they have, they will have a chance in life. And if you give them mindfulness and their practice of meditation, when you're really little, not when you're older, you can always do it, but it will be always more difficult. But from an early age, you even from terrible backgrounds, and we know all these, you know, incredible stories from people of horrible childhoods being billionaires today. You know, I'm without naming anyone, but you know who I'm talking about. There's this thing that if you empower children, and my children went to the Montessori school in London, which was fantastic, and they did have yoga from very little. I mean, my son was better in yoga with 3 years than me, you know. So I have seen it, and I thought this is brilliant, because this will equalize, you know, even underprivileged families. And then children have to know about financial literacy, otherwise they will be poor. And if they don't follow, a job in finance or in something secure, it's going to be terrible. And even if you have a creative profession like I had, you never learned about finances and business.
Absolutely, I cannot agree more. Yes, it is so important.
And you do need to learn it. So it's something where I thought, you know, there will be less poverty, because if you enable children to have all these skills, then their future will be definitely better. And also if you think about the ignorance we have in the world of what's happening with the world leaders, voting the wrong people, I think you will have a higher level. But there is definitely a force in the world that doesn't want education to happen too much, because there will be not controllable. I really believe in this. If you leave people ignorant, they're easier to control, and that's the world, sadly, we live in.
Kitsi, does it still exist, or did you?
It's kind of dormant. I was working to somebody that I met over COP30 from Brazil, and so many people are saying, "Oh, this is so fascinating," and you should even, I just came back from Davos, from the World Economic Forum. You should pitch it in Davos, but I can't do. I'm a very creative person, and I always have to make sure that I focus and that I don't get sidetracked. Yeah. And I said, well, it's there. I think I see it more today. If I happen to meet the person, or if there's an investor saying, or I take this on, I will, I can get it all transferred to somebody. I could say the creative director. So there's an open door, let's say it, but it's not something I'm pursuing because my main focus is now on my design work and how I can, with my work and this platform, have also positive impact in terms of climate for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to material library, is this a physical library?
No, we do have a lot of samples from materials, but we made it, especially after COVID, when we had to shut down our office in London, more like an online library. It's like our resources where we have access to all these incredible producers and materials, and where, we already discussed with many of them if this would be a platform where you will all be, kind of displayed, and where people can actually transact, not just, see them. And there's a huge interest from the industry. And so it's something that, this year will definitely going to happen.
So how did you start to collect it, or how did you start this library? I was reading about the mycelium research, to have mycelium as a material for constructing. Is this already in place, or is this a research project?
At the moment, mycelium can be used for acoustic tiles, for floor tiles, it's used in fashion for leather substitute, but it can be used for decorative, not for construction yet. But I can't talk more about it, but I'm talking to a startup in America which has a patent that created it as a building block, which is very fascinating, and they're applying in the US for the permission to have it as a building material. And if that happens, it's a game changer. It's an incredible alternative. And
can you name this startup?
No, I can't. It's very it's very confidential.
But they found investors.
No, they found the first investors, but they're still looking for. I'm also trying to help them to find investors, and maybe also to take it to the UAE, because there's so much construction going on and it's really not well done in the UAE. And I think it could be quite amazing, because even in the UAE they could use because obviously, from the natural point of view or geographical, they don't have these kind of trees like we have in America or Europe or anywhere in the world. But they could even use the mycelium from the date palm trees. So that's quite exciting that you can use it from, other sources, because it's practically the network of nature which is underneath the soil.
Yes.
And but there's other materials that can be used, not exactly for construction, but even building blocks already, which is like,
for example,
hempcrete, and it's from cannabis. And hempcrete is one of the most exciting materials that is available today, where it has the best temperature regulation. It doesn't get mold. It's incredible. It can reduce energy costs by 50%. And but again, these are just samples. We have so many materials in our library, including, like I said, alternatives to concrete, because the only part that's bad in concrete is the Portland cement. And so it's that part that creates the CO2. There are some companies who have patents who replace the Portland cement, so they can actually help concrete companies, instead of, saying they have to shut down, which obviously would not make sense, how to convert them into a more sustainable concrete. And then there's green cement, and there's other ones where there's a percentage much less percentage of the damaging cement, concrete. So, but there's also from other materials and other waste products. It's quite complex, but it's very exciting. That's why we also consult today. You know, we're consulting developers, we can consult tourism boards. I mean, I just came from Davos and I had a very good talk with South Africa and the Ministry of Tourism, the lady who's the Minister of Tourism in South Africa. And these are all very exciting potentials where the expertise can come more on a level to the ministry, or, you know, so that it's then being filtered down to developers and investors in order to do really change and change the way they're building.
Did you talk about the future of tourism?
Yeah, yes, I talk about this, and not just hospitality, but also other real estate. But in general, always about the future and how we can replace, you know, all the bad materials with healthy ones, and how also the subject, which is a big subject in Davos and everywhere, is longevity and biohacking. And I was giving a talk actually 2 years ago in Davos during the World Economic Forum, which was called Material Wellness. And I was showing how many toxins there are we are surrounded by. And we know about the toxins from food, from pollution, but we don't really know that the wood maybe table has formaldehyde. And I call it the invisible, danger, because you inhale it. It's not visible, so you don't feel scared when you don't see it. That's a kind of a human trait. And so, it's this invisible danger that's coming, and that can cause all these horrible diseases where so many people we know of die from cancer, and cancer, these are all cancer agents, these toxins.
Yeah, going back to school classes, kids being in these classes for the whole day, yeah, right.
And so, like the big problem of asbestos in East Europe, that's been used when it was already, completely forbidden in many countries. So
not only there, Central Europe as well.
Yeah, exactly. These are all really things that have long-term damage effect. And we always have to anticipate, not just in the moment, we always have to think about longer term, what's going to happen to our health. And with all the tricks of biohacking, and I think it's amazing that there are so many, solutions from neuroscience today, or discoveries, that we can extend life, the lifespan, together with health span, because otherwise there's no reason for it. But we also have to eliminate everything that is going to counteract. And a lot of materials have toxic, parts in it, and it's very unhealthy to live in it. And if you think we spend most of the time in most of the part of the world, unless we are in the very southern hemisphere where it's very hot, inside buildings, we are constantly exposed to all these harmful, materials. And I think that's something that's totally ignored and overlooked.
We should have then your material library, and on the opposite hand, we should have the library toxic materials, so that we can identify it. Just what you named. Yeah, you're in a room and said, okay, what is here surrounding me?
Yes.
Is it toxic or not?
Yes, exactly. And the library is also going to have certifications and giving transparency to what kind of certifications. And it's like in the food industry, like in some countries you have to write what is in it, and some countries you don't. And it's really bad if you don't. And now there are all these apps like Yuka, I don't know if you know them, where you can scan products and you can see already a lot of the cosmetics are terrible, and it's like really bad for you. And it's the same with materials. So yeah, it is important to understand and to make a choice.
And to talk about it, as you do.
First, you have to know about it, because most people don't even know about it, and then you have to have solutions. And the one big misconception is that a lot of people think sustainability is much more expensive. It's not. So it has different categories.
Give an example, please.
Well, for example, when I say about hempcrete can replace concrete in terms of blocking, not of the structure. Well, the structure has still to be steel, concrete, or wood if you do a building. But if you talking about the filling, the blocks like bricks or concrete blocks, you have many different blocks today that you can use, including hempcrete. And hempcrete is maybe 1 or 2% more expensive than concrete, and but it will give you it will be cheaper, because over time the energy cost that you save will be higher than the expense, the 1 or 2% more in the investment. And in terms of vegan leather, there are so many other leathers that are coming from the skin of apple, the skin of oranges, rhubarb, pineapple, cactus, and it's definitely not more expensive than animal leather. So this is just one example, and I can go on and on. But we have also CO2 absorbing materials, which is great. Materials that really absorb CO2, which you can use for facade. There's a company also in Italy where they have a patent where you can have these building blocks. It looks like granite or marble, but it's not. It's a different material. And they, again, have a patent, and you can, when you build a building, and then, of course, there's some CO2 produced for the material, because you always have to look at embodied carbon. Then it kind of cleans itself after 1 or 2 years. So it means it starts cleaning the air. And it's like, instead of having these carbon credits we are talking about, I find it more exciting to find materials that are already capturing CO2. And there are several amazing companies. There's Made by Air, there's another one, My Carbon, and they're all very interesting companies which are already tackling that problem.
We will write it in the show notes. Very interesting. Talking about spaces and atmosphere, and going back to your theater experience or education in LA, you really like music and opera.
Yes, I do.
Music and scent and furniture.
Absolutely. I mean, we are holistic beings. We have 5 senses. And I think as architects and designers, we are very often too much fixed on what we see with the sense of, vision. But what we scent, scent goes further back in your childhood than anything else. I mean, you probably remember the perfume of your grandmother or something that, when you were a child for Christmas, or like the cake or whatever it is. So scent is super important. And I've been, I had an exhibition in 2005, so 21 years ago, called 5+ Sense Hotel.
Where was that, the exhibition?
Well, it was a traveling exhibition. It started in Switzerland, outside Lucerne, in Willisau, because one of the sponsors had a beautiful place where we could do it. So I practically designed 5 circular spaces, each one designated to one of our senses. So one was for the scent. So with the scent, I worked with a very known scent artist, Sizzle Tolas, and also the IFF, the International Fragrance and Flavors, one of the biggest, flavor companies in the world. And we had these half spheres which you would scrap and you would activate a scent. And I wanted to show that, we have this sensibility to understand there's a different scent that, and we made it also a bit of fun. We had clean underwear was the name, or Christmas pie. So then we had also one room for taste. And it's about all this convenience food and terrible food that, you have in hotels, restaurants, even in the worst food is probably in schools, which is quite dramatic still today. And so we had like tablets done in a lab in Shanghai from IFF. And I wanted people to understand that we can differentiate between something that's acidic or spicy. So we had like muesli for sweet, Bombay chicken for spicy. So we had little pots where people could literally take a tablet, which was like a substitute for that kind of food, to experiment. And then, we had these 5 spheres. Then we designed with my team 2 suites for hotels. One was a junior suite, one was a presidential suite. So I wanted to show how to implement it. And this was a traveling exhibition from Lucerne it went then to Innsbruck, and then it went to London. And it went to Billingsgate, which is the old meat market in London. And one of my sponsors was Sleep and Eat, which is a very big organization. They used to have this hotel conference of the future event, and so they integrated it into their exhibition. And then it went into a place in London where now is the Shoreditch House from Soho House, into this tea factory where it was for another 3 months displayed. And it was, we had hotel people coming in and guests coming, and we had some really remarkable experiences where some ladies came and said, this is not the classical way, but I feel so at ease here. I feel so, welcomed, so good at the space. Because everything I did was like showing that it's not about the brass, that gold imitation in order to get the luxury hospitality, represented. So what we did is we had translucent materials. Everything I had already at the time texted on toxins. And then I had back projection from the bathroom where you had beautiful flower from your bedroom. You would look onto this amazing digital wall not digital wall, but it was like a reflection of these flowers. And it was an artist I saw at a gallery in London. And then we had a carpet. When you were going on it, you activated a scent. And you had a morning scent in the shower and good night scent in the bathroom.
So you step on the carpet and it was a scent was activated.
Yes, and then we had a CD player with different scents that you could play. And it was published all over the world. And we had like huge recognition for it. Mm-hmm. And it was showing, and this is where I also worked on a scent machine that you can have a diffusing of scent, but natural, because today there's a lot of non-natural scent, which is very dangerous, again, very toxic. Because this is 21 years ago, and it was really new. But it was all studied that it's all natural, that it's like very subtle, like super subtle, and that some scents make you sleepy and some make you awake. So we really use that, and also working with lighting. I think 2005 the iPhone came out. I think, if I'm right. So I remember with I used the iPhone. And we had it in the wall, the technology, so you could change the lighting behind your bed. It was following the sunset or the sunrise and sunset, and behind your bed. And then you could have different sound for morning, midday, evening. So it was all, very customized. And we also had the lighting, studying the circadian lighting and the rhythm of your body and how you perceive lighting. So circadian lighting is very important for sleeping better in a room. And this is what we do today also. I always studied sleep scientists and see what can you do, because it's sleeping well in a hotel room is still not a given, even in luxury.
It's not only the choice of pillows. You can choose between 5 pillows. No, it's much more.
That's like the basic. You have to think about all the material. But the really important is also to understand how our mind works and what are some sounds, like when all these apps came out, like Calm app, I don't know if you know it, you have these sleep sounds, and there are some that are really scientifically studied. We also work with a neuroscience lab in Lisbon who can show the connection between health and sound. This is now also very interesting when you look how it's connected, and so it's also very interesting for the whole wellness and spa area. So I'm working on biohacking longevity wellness concept that is completely new. It's not like the normal spa, and it's all backed by science. And it's a combination of ancient Asian wisdom, like Tai Chi and meditation and all of this, but combined with neuroscience and biohacking, where you have machines that you can go in and you can recover your sleep that you maybe didn't have at night, and meditation pods, and there's a lot of interesting devices that are available. So I like to combine both of it.
So opera, the last opera you went to?
The Giovanni, I went to.
Where was that?
It was like 2 years ago in Salzburg. I usually go. I tried last year. It's 2 years the last time, and therefore I haven't gone for like a few years. But then I was going for 10 years to Salzburg, because I was also designing the Intercontinental, which is now the Kempinski outside Salzburg. And I just love the city of Salzburg. I think it's a beautiful city. I had my son with 3 years. He was in the Mozarteum, where everybody was looking at me, how could you take him there, but he behaved really well. And I think it's the thing about opera and theater is especially lighting and flexibility, because if you think the stage has to be changed in between different scenes, so quickly, and you can see how with lighting and color and just some replacements you create a different feeling. And so we can learn a lot from opera about lighting, and also the use of shadow and light, because so many places are just lit and there's no, your eyes get very tired when you have always the same monotonous lighting. So you do need lighting, functional lighting where you want to read or eat or you want to see it, but you need then atmospheric lighting so you're not blended, your eye is not bothered, and you have also the feeling in the evening of winding down. So it's, again, everything is a science when you look into depth. It's not just a superficial, element.
Absolutely. Talking about hospitality, you work on a very special project on hospitality, a special hotel. Would you like to talk about it?
Yes, I mean, I can talk a bit about it. It's really about creating my own brand because I've done so much in hospitality that I feel I know what's missing on the market and where it's a regenerative concept, and it would be, first of all, almost like a prototype of all these amazing materials that I have gathered, which I would claim not anybody else has, and then having also, a biohacking wellness center that is something that hasn't been done today, and always in a beautiful setting outside city center. So it could be outside New York, outside Paris, outside London, anywhere in the world it would fit. Because I think it's more exciting to create a brand than just a one-off, and especially to show how it's built and having organic food and working with creatives and having a community that with like-minded people. Because in hospitality, we can see today that we are totally away from this informal, very neutral way of like the typical Hilton, which was one of the first hotel brands in the world, and there's a very different world out today where people, they have a certain taste, they like to be more with like-minded people, so they look for that kind of hotel. And through social media and digital world, we can see before we go somewhere. Before it didn't exist. You had some brochures, you didn't know where you're gonna go to. I guess you know that I've been teaching over 20 years at the hotel school in Lausanne, and also I'm still teaching at the Institut Paul Bocuse in Lyon and Paris, which is now called the Life Institute since Mr. Bocuse passed away. And it's great to have the students understand how the world is changing and what is important. And I remember before I was teaching in Lausanne, there was no design or architecture in any hotel school in the world. And this is like over 25 years ago, probably. I was giving a talk in London at the hotel conference, which doesn't exist anymore, which is now really mainly the one in Berlin, IHIF and other ones. And the dean heard me and he invited me to come to Lausanne. And then the students said they want to find out more. They don't want to hear me in a lecture. And so they created a module for me, which was teaching 40 hours, usually the master students or the last year undergraduate students. And everybody was amazed because my students would stay longer than when everybody else wanted to leave, And I made it very practical.
They were really captured.
They were totally captured because I made it very practical. I had them, even being no designers and architects, I put them in groups and we would go to the hotels in Lausanne. The hotels didn't like me all at the end too much because we would go to the luxury hotels and say what's really bad. And there was a lot bad things. And then they would have to redesign by using, imagery and cutting out, doing collage, whatever, to see and do a lot of photography, what's not working and how it could be better and how, you could almost improve the hotels. And if it's, having checklists to understand what is important in hotel. And so suddenly their eyes open to many different features they didn't see before. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then I told the school that they have to get somebody, they want me to come more, and I couldn't do this more than twice a year. So then I told them to hire somebody to teach them and make it part of the curriculum, which they later did.
Yeah, your working day, how many hours does it have?
Well, it's a really kind of between my personal life and my work, there's not so much of a difference. I mean, there's a lot of people who have a job and they say, oh, no, I'm done, and now I meet so many interesting people all the time in my life and work and through my travels, so that there's not such a really fine, it's a very fine line, between the two.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Yasmine, for this inspiring talk with you. If our listeners want to know more about the material library and all the other projects, where can we have this information?
Well, I think a very good thing is to connect on LinkedIn. which I regularly do under my name, Yasmine Mahmoudieh. It's very good to maybe also on Instagram to send a message, but also just design@mahmoudieh.com, which goes to my office, to manager, and then they could be, I will always be reached over that in an easy way. And LinkedIn is good because we do post a lot, and we also, educate a lot with materials on LinkedIn. So, and they can always reach out there.
A wish for the future?
Well, if more than one, but let's say I think in terms of my profession, or you mean in general?
In terms of your profession.
I really will hope that there's less greenwashing, and that because this word sustainability we are already talking more about regenerative design, and then the word sustainability is really abused, and everywhere you see it, and I think it's not about fulfilling something, even if the regulations are becoming stricter now with the EU, but it's being authentic and understanding if you cheat on something, it backfires, and you have to be transparent to your customers, and you have to be transparent to the world and to the next generation. Everybody has children. A lot of people have children, let's say this way, and if they are really worried about the future of their children, they should not greenwash. They should understand and see how they can, make the world better. And I'm also working with organizations, I forgot to mention, like PDIE and Christian Schmitz.
PDIE is?
It's like organized by Christian Schmitz, and it's really an initiative to find inventors in regenerative design all over the world. We met in Davos during the World Economic Forum, and he has created also GRIIA, and I will give you later the exact explanation. And it's really to promote projects that are positive for the world, and by whoever invents them, and for the climate. And my part is specifically in the architecture and design world. So I think the wish would be especially to the people who are in power, and investors, developers, the ones who are shaping the world, to understand, to be more open to these alternatives, and to hire people who can bring them a change for the world. And at the same time, it's never at a loss of finances, because I understand, we live in a financial system that we have to make this working. And I can always prove that it's actually even more profitable to think, about the climate and having these materials than not to. Not just on long term, even in midterm, but like I said, this would be my wish, that this will be taken more seriously, and we can see a shift in the way we build.
Yasmine, thank you so much again. All the best for all your projects, future projects, and hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's it for today. I'd be really happy if you join us again next time. If you'd like to support us, feel free to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating or a few stars. And if you'd like to become a sponsor of CUP, you can chip in with the value of 1 or more cups of coffee. Just click the Patreon link in the show notes. Goodbye everyone, see you soon, and take care.